Hey everyone, so today I wanted to put together a few slides as well as a really detailed walkthrough of Amazon's impression share report. So the impression share report is super awesome because it gives you all of the basics of the search term report plus your actual Amazon advertising impression share data. So you can pull this for both sponsor products and sponsor brands. The report I'm going to be walking you through today is a sponsor brands report because I think it helps conceptualize the data when you can see the one placement on the page and understand why impression share is so valuable. I absolutely love this report. One, it helps me just get really good insights into where our spend's going, but it also helps me understand where we have room to grow beyond ACOS and optimizations. So with the impression share report, due to the fact that the majority of impressions or advertising views are weighted towards the top of the page, this can help you make optimizations on your keywords and or targets from a market share perspective. To kind of walk you through what I mean by that, let's take a search term like protein. Let's say you are, let's go to like the 5th top ranked brand, Orgain. Let's say you're Orgain. You're not seen on the first half of the page and you are like, hey, I want to win this headline search ad spot 90% of the time. Well, the good thing is you can download the impression share report. You can see what your current impression share is. Maybe it's 20% because you're only winning page 2, or maybe you're only winning when Vega goes out of budget. And then you can see what your CPC is for the term protein and your conversion rate. Now, if you have a strong conversion rate and your CPC is pretty good, you can go into your campaign really quickly or your targeting tab and you can increase the bid for protein, and then you can watch your impression share to see if it increases as well. And the goal is, hypothetically, you want to win this placement at 24 hours a day. And if you have a really good granular campaign setup, you can make that decision almost immediately. And when you increase your bid, make sure you're bidding 100% higher than everyone else. You can then see, hey, my impression share is now 90%, possibly even 100% if you're winning the placement all the time. And that will help you make better strategic decisions. And I'm going to walk through some of the filters I use to help me understand where my placement is on the page, as well as why we want to win more placements. I like to look at these 5 placements at the top of search as an end cap placement. Your customers have the highest amount of purchase intent, and these are the placements that they're going to see first. So if you have, a discount, coupons, the #1 rated product, this visibility means a ton. So when we're talking with brands about, hey, you want to gain more market share, this is typically the place to do it, especially if you have this granular search term data. And then on top of it, if you're converting really well and driving high volume, that's going to help increase your organic rank. So again, making decisions based off impression share can be super valuable. And again, to help conceptualize how impression share is weighted, it doesn't matter who you are. When you type a bar or anything into the search bar, these placements get 100% of impression share. A customer has to see these advertising placements. So if you're bidding pretty low and your sponsor product ads are at the bottom of the page, you're maybe getting, 20% impression share. Or if you're only winning this down here, maybe 10% of impression share because few customers are scrolling all the way down. So that's how to understand what that metric is weighted to and why you'll see such high impression share percentages when you win all of these placements, which is a strategy we regularly implement for market share, organic ranking, and when we're wanting to dominate top of search because we have amazing, Prime Day deals or coupons or things like that. So the first thing that we do is download the impression share report. You'll see it under your reporting, search term impression share. I typically like to look at smaller time frames like last 30 days, or if I made a strategic change into a few of my campaigns, maybe last 7 days, last 2 weeks, things like that. I download the reports and I kind of see all of the raw data like you'd see here. One thing to note, I'm not an Excel genius. Absolutely not. Formulas, all of that, way over my head. So I'm walking you through the very, very basics of how anyone for any brand can use this report to get a better understanding of what they're doing. So I select all my data, insert, pivot table, got that. And then one thing to note is I like my rows to be search terms rather than targets. So if you do targets, it's going to give you an aggregate of all of your search terms and show you the data on a keyword level. So it's probably a more accurate representation of the data visualization. But when you get it on the search term level, that's going to allow you to make better decisions that are more granular for the specific search terms. So for future changes, I like using customer search term. And then I'll add a few other values, which I'll show you here. I do average search term impression share. I do conversion rate, CPC, sum of spend, sum of sales, and then I go in, push the little info button, make sure I have averages applied so I can get an aggregate of all the data again. And then because I just don't love Excel, again, I'm not very good at this, I copy the data and I add it to Google Sheets because that's typically where I operate when I'm running any form of analysis. So I pasted the raw data here, and I'll just go back to my slides real fast after walking through the examples of pivot table. And I'm going to walk through some of the filters that I like to see. And again, this is really flexible on brand, but high conversion rate, low impression share, low conversion rate, high CPC, high conversion rate, high CPC, and then the last one is organic rank plus impression share. These are all the things I really like to consider when I'm looking at this report. So scrolling through here, what you can just make quick analysis of is top down by spend. That's my favorite thing to do. And I have cleaned this data so that way it's not actually showcasing any data. I pulled some examples from accounts, then manipulated the data so that way impression share, conversion share, things like that are good, but you can't actually see any form of brand data. Now, let's just scroll through here real fast. So one of the first things I love looking at is everything that has a conversion rate above 20%, right? So in the average for this category, you can see it goes from our highest top of the funnel keyword to be at 8% conversion rate to some of these long tails, you're seeing 10, 20, 30, fit protein up to 50% conversion rate. And you really can set your baseline for a category like this. I would say anything above 20% is a really strong conversion rate for this category because it's very competitive. But I've seen apparel or anything that has to do with decor, their average conversion rates are 5%. So know your baselines. Don't go in here and like make crazy filters just based off industry standards. Know what your brand is before making some of those decisions. But for this brand, I consider anything higher than a 20% conversion rate to be a really good keyword to look at. So I filter that and you can see, I'm going to just scroll through here and take a look. So organic protein powder, I am converting incredibly well. And I'm only winning 12% of impression share. So that means my ad's probably showing up on page 3, page 4, and probably not organically ranked that well for this keyword either, but that's something to keep in mind. And it's $5.26. So as a brand, I need to make a decision. Should I continue to invest in this keyword because of my lifetime value of having a product like this? And because my conversion rate is so good that if I drive high amounts of volume to this keyword, my rank will increase. That's the most important factor. Is should this be a ranking keyword? If yes, it needs to go in a very specific ranking campaign with a high bid, because ACOS isn't going to be fantastic. So you don't want your software optimizing this for profitability. You're converting so dang well that high volume will increase your organic rank over time. But that's up to you as a brand to decide if that cost is worth it. If I were to bid $2 on this keyword and focus on profitability, my impressions would tank, in all honesty. I mean, I'm bidding $5 and only getting 12% of impression share right now. So when we're talking to brands about how do you focus profitability and scalability, these are the discussions we have with them. A good thing to consider here is where you're organically ranked on the page. If you're on page 2, then the first thing I would recommend to this brand is you have an amazingly strong conversion rate. You should drive more traffic to this keyword and get your organic rank up, because that high volume on those organic style keywords is going to do you a much better job of increasing your long-term market share. In the short term, yeah, it's not going to be fun. So this is one of the first filters I like looking at because it just really is insightful. You can see for some of these more granular ones, pea protein powder, 25% CVR, lower CPC. That's definitely one we'd want to grow market share on. But again, one thing to note as well is if you're going to increase impression share, you almost always have to increase CPC. So the numbers you're seeing here are going to be even worse after you improve your bid to $7 to $8, right? So again, important decision to have. This is cool to note. As a brand, we have 39% conversion rate, right? But 100% of impression share. So that makes sense. It's a pretty granular keyword. We're not going to be getting a lot of search volume out of that. It's just who types that in. Scrolling through, you can see most of our really profitable, high converting keywords we have really strong impression share on. But this is a good opportunity to grow. We have a 50% conversion rate here. We're only winning 22% of impression share. That means we should probably be, like, this tells me, hey, I need to be dominating top of search if I have a 50% conversion rate. And then I can see 41% ACOS. That's pretty good. So that's something small we like to look at. Again, I like to layer in concepts like what's the bid. If the bid is incredibly high, even though I'm converting super, super well at a $5.53 bid, it's going to be, pretty hard to get organically ranked without bleeding, which brings us to the last tab, which is a bleeding tab. So I like to look at, hey, what is less than 10% conversion rate and higher than a $4 bid? If I was in a less expensive category, less competitive category, I'd probably lower this filter to higher than a $2 bid. But I can then go through and say, hey, these are, number one keyword, and I'm only converting at a 6%. That could be a really good indicator that I need listing optimization, right? Or, hey, this makes sense because it's a competitor brand. I don't expect to be converting really high on this, so I'm okay with that. Scrolling through, same concepts all the way through, like just easy call outs there. Other things I really like to look at is where do I have really easy wins? Where am I converting really high? Where are CPCs low? And where is my impression share low? Or are there any terms that I just want to dominate 100% of the time regardless of spend, regardless of budget? Those are all super important. And then the last big project we really like to do is, again, layer in your organic ranking for all of these concepts. Amazon advertising is no longer just about profitability and ACOS. Amazon advertising is having the best real estate on the page. So as you can see, that's typically top of search. How can you tell if you're dominating top of search? If you have a higher than 70% impression share. So one thing we'll do, if I'm gold standard, I probably don't want to be winning all 3 sponsored product placements because I'll be cannibalizing my sales. No one's going to scroll down, or customers may not know and they may just click on your ad. But if I scroll all the way down to this brand, Combat Protein Power, very strong reviews relatively. They're very strong price point relative to everyone else. Combat Protein Powder may want to take a look at this report and see, hey, my ads are nowhere on the page. I want to focus on organic ranking increase. Let's win top of search primarily because it's a volume play and I'm converting so dang well because my price point's so much better. Let's hemorrhage money because my bids are going to be too expensive, and then track my organic ranking over the next, 2 to 3 weeks. As my organic ranking incrementally increases, the additional sales being driven can help justify some of that spend and potentially keep your tacos pretty level if you're converting well enough to improve your organic ranking. On the flip side, if I take a look at this and I'm like, hey, where am I driving really high spend with terrible ranking? That's potentially, or terrible conversion rate, that could potentially hurt my organic ranking because I'm driving high volume and I'm converting terribly, which is sending a signal to Amazon that customers are clicking on their ads, but they're not buying. What kind of experience could that be? So those are just some of the things that we look at. It's just a step above of your search term report. So anyone who's using your search term report, highly recommend maybe switching to your impression share because that's giving you basically the same data with a little bit additional insights. And again, this is all about focusing on market share, scalability, and ranking. Much less about focusing on profitability, though there are really strong filters you can use to figure out where you're showing tons of exposure at terrible conversion rates or ridiculous CPCs. So let me know if you have any questions or any better ways to use this report. Again, this is not my expertise. This is just how I personally like to look at a brand and make quick optimizations. So Thank you all so much and have a wonderful rest of your week. See ya.